Okay, so we are live now. Can you hear me, Cheryl?
Hi, Stella.
Hi.
You're amazing tonight. Thank you for joining us. It's so nice to have you with us.
I'm just I can't believe this report, and I think it needs to be talked about, and I think this is the best way to do it with everyone. So, I mean, I have it pulled up here, and I can actually show a screenshot. I don't know what it would look like though. Let me see real quick. Banners, comments. Where'd it go? Oh, so there it is. I don't think people are going to be able to read that though.
Well, but they might. At least, I mean, it gives them an idea.
Okay.
If they'll be able to see it, but
okay, well, we'll just put that up and down, and I can even type stuff on the bottom. And so we're discussing the Bayshore High School cancer cluster release from the Department of Health that was released yesterday. And you know, there may be some people that watch this and don't know your story, Cheryl. And I think your story and the people within the community that have been affected by this is what is most important, you know. And I think you should kind of just quickly go over what happened that put you in this position of fighting for clean water and healthy communities.
Okay, I think that's a good idea to go ahead and back up and give a little history on it. So my sister Terry passed away in 1995 or 1999 from leukemia. And a couple years later, another classmate died of a leukemia also. And I started thinking, wow, that's what are the odds of that? And started talking to other classmates and started hearing stories. So then I started keeping track. And then word got out that I was keeping track, and I was getting emails and phone calls. And here we are 16 years later.
16 years. Wow.
16 years later. So in March of 2017, I decided to approach the Manatee County Commissioners at a land use meeting regarding the old Manatee OTEC, because it was right beside Bayshore High School, and it urged them not to do anything with the property until an environmental assessment was done. And that was how we were able to bring this to light. So they started requesting more information. We came back a month later with all the information they requested, and the county provided information. At that point, the Manatee County Commissioners urged the Florida Department of Health to do this health study. And so here we are.
So how long did the health study take to complete?
So it's been exactly 3 years since they collected the first form.
3 years.
3 years.
I kind of want to start off with an interesting observation that we've made with this Department of Health study. So I'm here on the East Coast, and we had a similar situation to you guys with Satellite High School. And we were able to get our cancer assessment study done in 8 months. So why did it take 3 years?
And you know, Spell, that amazes me. Not only did Brevard County turn around and get it back to you guys in 8 months, they never collected the first patient listing form. Our alumni had to turn in a form that had to be notarized, and I mean, there was all these steps they had to go through. And I never understood that, because as you and I both know, through our advocacy and the investigations that we've been doing, the Florida Cancer Data System keeps this track of this information by patients with cancer based on the zip code of where they live.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that point is going to come up numerous times tonight.
Oh, yeah, because, you know, cancer stays in one zip code and water doesn't travel. I just, you know, I say that sarcastically, but it's just so interesting how different our assessments are. And it's not just our assessments. It's also, you know, St. Lucy's assessment was done so differently. There's no
protocol,
no standard protocol. So it makes me question how they are doing these assessments. If they're all so different. You know, yours took 3 years, ours took 8 months. They actually studied 2 zip codes in our area, and they limited your study. It just seems really suspicious to me. That
Right. And
that
I
you
find
know,
it very concerning that they only used the one zip code immediately around the school, where the school is located at 34210. And there was many people that lived in other areas of the county, like out on the island, for example, clearly a different zip code. So I don't know how that makes this report that they released yesterday an apple and apple compared to what our expert gave report that he gave us, where it clearly showed that leukemias, lymphomas, and brain cancers were statistically significant.
I'm trying to pull up the report on my computer so I can kind of go through it. I mean, I would like to start from the beginning, and if anybody is joining us, we are live here on Facebook, and we'd really appreciate it if you would comment below and let us know you're here. Let us know your thoughts on this cancer cluster assessment. Let us know if you've looked at this, and join in on the conversation. If you have any questions, definitely ask those. Cheryl has been doing this a really long time, and I know that we have joined efforts with activists across the state of Florida who have been in similar situations. So we're really creating a much bigger movement and noticing that there's a lot of negligence happening here in the state of Florida. So on the DOH Manatee release report, it starts off by saying, I might have to zoom in a little bit because my paper's a little far here. The Florida Department of Health in Manatee County has received the final report on the Bayshore High School cancer study that was launched in 2017. Specifically, the department launched the study to determine whether or not Bayshore High School buildings and grounds could have contributed to a possible cancer cluster over the last 30 years. The study's findings suggest no evidence of a cancer cluster associated with the high school. What are your thoughts on that one sentence alone? No finding evidence. I'm not surprised either.
Not surprised. In fact, when I was interviewed by Good Morning America 3 years ago, he asked me what my thoughts were, and I said, I believe they'll come back and say that we are not a cancer cluster. Because as you and I both know now through our advocacy, it's very difficult to get a cancer cluster identified. So my thoughts are on this. One of the things that I saw on here, they said that they were asked to, let me see, where did it say? To whether or not school buildings and grounds could have contributed to a possible cancer cluster over the last 30 years. They explicitly told us at the 2017 town hall meeting that they were only looking at our health data, and that if we were determined to be a cancer cluster, then they would come back and do the environmental assessment part.
Okay, so they made you wait 3 years where there could have been potential contamination.
Correct.
3 years, there could be more victims if there's contamination there, rather than just doing environmental testing, water quality testing. Or, Fight for Zero does water quality testing, soil testing, air testing. I mean, so you made people wait 3 years that could have been potentially drinking contaminated water or being exposed to contaminated land. It really doesn't make sense to me. What about you? I don't know.
So there was another place in the report that is referenced. Oh, while no documented environmental exposure link could be found for the area of the old Bayshore High School, the final report reads. And I have right here, and I've shared it multiple times publicly. I have here, this is a letter to Rob Brown, Acting Director of Pollution Control. This is dated October 1990, and it was from Jeffrey Steinsnyder, who was an assistant county attorney. And he says in here, and this is in regards to Riverside Products, which the experts believe is one of the potential contributors of the toxins. And He writes, I believe there is no liability on behalf of the county in regard to this site. However, even if there were, the timely remediation of the site would be in the county's best interest. It is still not cleaned up. Monday, November 30th, the Florida DEP, this is an email on 12/1, spoke to Jane Gray at Burr. They are still waiting on payment deposit from Mr. Cooper to install the well. This is still ongoing for the cleanup at Riverside. We also discussed the inability to pay review and the state-funded cleanup in the indigent consent order, which takes me to this document. This is dated August 24th, 1995, and it is from Richard Garrity, Director of Division Management, Southwest District, and it is to the Chief of Bureau of Waste Cleanup, Doug Jones, and it states, sufficient data exists which clearly indicate that contamination from the site is threatening public health and the environment. So I don't understand that part. While no documented environmental exposure link could be found for the area of the old Bayshore High School, I don't know how they get to that. An additional email, and this is a recent one, and this is from Mary Urine, and let me see, the Department of Health, and this was on, where'd it go? Okay, this was, sorry, gotta add it. Where they stated that the Florida DOH has not been to the Riverside property since 1999.
So what
99. So we've been saying this since May of 2017 that Riverside is a problem and they need to get, and if it weren't for Jim Thompson is the father of one of the BHS alumni, and he's been very instrumental in staying and emailing and contacting the Florida DEP and updating and going, why isn't something being done? And he's been very instrumental in that, and sent the email to him earlier in the week. Oh, here it is. It's right here. The Office of Inspector General learned DOH has limited involvement in actions regarding the Riverside Products property. The last time DOH staff were on site was in 1999 to take a well sample. And at that time, DOH found the property was connected to the county water system. You know, they keep reverting back to, well, it was county water. You know what? There are county wells all over the county, and these toxins can travel and get in the county well. So just because a county, they're on county or city water doesn't mean that they're exempt from toxins. And I think that it's a huge misconception to the public that it was safe, it was good, and we checked it out. But that email was dated to Mr. Thompson on Thursday, November 26th, last week.
See, Cheryl came with the receipts. She's not playing any games. She came with all the documents. You've been doing this so long. It's just, you know, the games that they play in Tallahassee, and it trickles on down to our county. They play on wordplay. They know how to do public relations. They know how to manipulate the public's perception on what's going on because, you know, I don't think anybody ever really wants a cancer cluster in their hometown. No. That's something that people, I mean, who would want that, right?
Right. Once their house in that, like, first of all, just for the health factor alone.
Yeah. So I'm looking through, I mean, this whole report, there's so much that could we could be going over. You know, they say the old Bayshore High School building was adjacent to where the current Bayshore High School is located. I don't see where they brought up the building you're talking about. The what now? The
Votech?
Well, there was a building that you just brought up that's right there, the property, Riverside Products.
Oh, okay, so that was,
why is that not mentioned?
Yeah, that's a few miles up the road.
Okay.
but it's due north. And Dave Woodhouse in in July of 2017, our expert geologist, Dave Woodhouse, met with the Florida DEP. And basically what he told them was that when Riverside was initially scored to see if it qualified for like federal funds for a cleanup, he said that it was underscored and improperly scored, underscored, and that it needed to be addressed. And they didn't do anything with him. And in fact, at that meeting, he asked if I could attend that meeting, and they wouldn't allow me to come. So I asked for the meeting. They said no, and they turned around and invited Mr. Woodhouse.
So that's another thing that needs to change is intentionally leaving out the victims, and especially the victims who want to do the work and they want to do the investigations. Like, why would you not collaborate with the community? And it's not just your area. I've noticed that's with every case, whether it's
exactly
our case here, St. Lucie, Apopka, officials end up shunning out the victims or the advocates, the people advocating for the victims in the community. Right. And that's just the wrong way to go. They should collaborate, bring them in, bring them to the table. You know what I mean? You should be sitting at the table.
Embrace their knowledge, because I know not. This goes through periods of different county commissioners, different school board members. Not everybody has always been there. I mean, change every 2 years, 4 years, and so on and so forth. And I understand that, but to ignore us, and then not only ignore us, but then try to give us a report like this and act like it's all official and there's nothing wrong, when the DOH hasn't been on the Riverside property since 1999, which, by the way, that's the year my sister died. Ironically, that's the year my sister died. And I was infuriated when this report came out. I kept reading it, and your mind starts going to this and that, and as you know, Sal, you and I found each other because your situation was exactly like Bayshore alumni coming up, with cancer cases at very young ages, and I reached out to you, and here we are, and we've come a long way. We have a long way to go, but I'm proud of the steps we're making, and it's sad that people that are cancer survivors like yourself, or family members of persons that have passed away, or victims, have to step up to the plate and do this work. To me, it's appalling. And I think the other thing that is appalling is that the Florida Department of Health released this report to the media rather than releasing it to the victims and the families first, which is why we are doing this tonight first, because of course we do have our prepared press release, through Fight for Zero, that we're going to release to the media. Basically it's our rebuttal to, well, how about this? Mm-hmm. But we wanted to share with the families and the victims what we have, because that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. That's the considerate thing to do, to just roll this off, and not that there's anything with the media having it, but the victim should always come first.
Yes, I agree. And they did the same thing with our report. I call it the control of information. They have these secretive meetings beforehand to tell them, this is our version of what happened in our report, and they break it down for the officials so the officials can relay it to the public, and then they release it to the media first, so they're all prepared.
Right.
They're hyper prepared. They know exactly what's in the report. They know exactly what they're going to say to the public, and we're all left in the dark.
Well, and the good point is they had 3 years with their report. So then we have to, then the minute that comes out, you've got reporters calling you, asking for your opinion, and yeah. So, but anyway, so here we are. Let's continue on.
So I don't know if you want me to keep reading the actual report.
Sorry, that's fine. Some may not have had access to it, so I think that's a great idea.
So I'm going to go, forms were shared with State Health Office for review and reporting purposes. And, interject yourself at any time if you think of something. While no documented environmental exposure link could be found for the area of the old Bayshore High School, the final report reads, DOH proceeded to review data from the State Cancer Registry, the Florida Cancer Data System, to address community concerns received by DOH in Manatee County. I have a few thoughts on this. I do. So they made us have all of our community call on a phone number. And they made you guys fill out these really complicated, long, it's 10 times harder to have a community fill out paperwork rather than doing it digitally.
Right. And they had to have them notarized, and,
That's crazy.
My sister's deceased, and I don't get the differences in how these cancer cluster investigations are handled in the different counties and the different areas throughout the state. I do not understand that.
Yeah, they had us call in. They gave us a phone number to the Department of Health, and then at the end of the day, they didn't use a single one of the phone calls. We had so many issues. What we did with the Department of Health is I called in and pretended I was somebody else. And I said, I want to call to report my cancer. How would I do that? Because I was getting a lot of reports from our community members that they were discouraging people from calling and actually submitting their information. And so I called to see, how they would react. And sure enough, they were like, oh, well, it's normal. And I remember asking, oh, but there's 11 people on my street that have cancer too that were diagnosed in the last 3 years. That's normal? Yes. The epidemiologist on the other line was agitated. You could tell he didn't want to be on the phone. And he kept saying, that's normal. Cancer happens. We all get cancer. I even had cancer. Just because I had cancer doesn't mean something caused it. It was just, not a Department of Health reaction that you expect. You know what I mean? Like when you want them to take your health into consideration and your concerns, especially, and dismissing it.
Data. Look, take the data and do whatever you're going to do with it, but to sit there and try to convince you that it's normal.
Yeah, that's exactly what they tried to do. So they had us call in, they had you guys do forms. Other areas have done completely different things, and in some places they just kind of dismissed people and didn't even do an assessment. So yeah, they're not. There's no standard protocol. They're not doing all of our assessments similar.
I truly believe, had we not had our experts that included a toxicologist, an epidemiologist, and a biostatistics professor, if we did not have their geologists, if we did not have those 4 individuals, they would have never done this. Never.
And we had our angel, I call her our angel, oncologist Greenwald, who was our saving grace for her to come in and say, I think there's something wrong here. And so I think that's the only reason why anybody took it seriously or looked into it here too.
Right. Because it's hard to discredit a doctor. But speaking of, I did have a doctor contact me, a biostatistics doctor contact me, and said that he had tried to convince the Florida Department of Health that there was a cancer cluster in Southwest Florida, had the exact same elevated cancers that our biostatistics professor found. And that was leukemias, lymphomas, and brain cancers. The Florida Department of Health asked to exchange data with him, and he did. And they never reciprocated. And then they went as far as to try to discredit him. So, when people ask me, well, what did you expect when this report came out? I expected exactly this, that for them to say we weren't a cluster, because if they are going to discredit a doctor that is a professor of, biostatistics.
Yep. Well, and then you talk about them discrediting him. Well, let's point out that just this year, the Department of Health fired a Florida data scientist because she wouldn't manipulate the data to their liking. and it has to do with the COVID data.
Yep.
So what does that tell you?
Well, the minute that information aired, I said, I believe her. I absolutely 100% believe her. I don't believe it was any of those other reasons, that they said that, why they let her go. Just because what we have dealt with this report right here, and the differences between yours and ours, we still have some examples to cover.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep going through here now. It says FCDS data. I'm guessing that's the cancer registry data. From zip code 34210, the zip code, which includes the old Bayshore High School, was reviewed for 3 time periods: 1986, 1995, and 1996 through 2005, and 2006 to 2015. And for 8 different types of cancer: brain and other nervous system, breast, Hodgkin's lymphoma. Wow, you guys had Hodgkin's lymphoma. I don't know if they covered that for us. Kidney, pelvis, leukemia, prostate, and thyroid. Is there anything that you see missing from that list?
There are, but I think the thing to me that stands out more so than what is missing is the fact that this data started at 1986. My sister's class of 1979 had 356 people in it, had 4 known leukemias, 3 of those deaths, 3 deaths from ALS, which I know that they don't track that, but it's still a terrible illness. And that data was not included. And in fact, it was the data from that class
Did they say why?
So they told us at the May 2017 Townhall meeting that Manatee County school system or school district was tasked to review the list of persons so that they confirmed that they were a student. And they said that their records didn't go back prior to 85. So only 86 and forward could they verify they were a student. Where I have a problem with that is that the Florida Cancer Data System, they don't keep their data based on what year you were in high school or where you went to high school. They keep data based on your diagnosis and the zip code you live in when you're diagnosed. So why was all of that information eliminated? And if they had to, I have every school yearbook all the way back to 1973. I could have gladly looked it up for her and verified it. So there's no reason to eliminate data from a huge data set that was used with our expert. So they're not comparing apples to apples. So this reminds me of Rebecca Jones. Is that what you thought?
Oh, yeah. The first thing I thought when this came out, I said, wow, what a perfect year for them to release this study finally after 3 years, during a pandemic when you can't even have a community meeting right now, with a large group of people. And then I immediately thought of Rebecca Jones because I believe her too. I believe that they wanted her to manipulate the data and she wouldn't do it.
Wouldn't do it. Yep.
So, and I think, what I think eventually is going to happen, just like Fight for Zero has taken the initiative and we basically took matters into our own hands and we said, you know what, we're not going to rely on the government because we protect us. We're not going to rely on the government to protect us. We're going to protect us, and we're going to do our own independent water testing, our own independent soil testing, and we're going to start collecting our own health data and get our own studies and get all of these experts on board, even if they want to be behind the scenes, because some of them are like whistleblowers. We have numerous amounts of whistleblowers, some at water departments, some, behind hospitals, doctors, nurses. So we do have an amazing team of people. But I think eventually what I would love to see is for our organization to take on these cancer cluster investigations and do independent studies.
Right.
With actual experts, epidemiologists.
Right. Because clearly what our experts found is exact opposite of
Mm-hmm.
county DOH. And, the fact that it took 3 years to get this, seriously?
Did they share their data? Did they share how they came to this result?
Um, they sent me that around, I don't know, probably about 3:15 today. I have not had time to sit down and compare that apples to apples. However, I am in contact with our biostatistics expert, and we will be discussing that here in the near future. He's already looked at some of it, and he's already throwing questions out there.
Well, here's some more. You ready for more? We could just tear this whole report apart. Cancer data from the FCDS and population data from the United States Census were used to calculate a standardized incidence ratio, respectively, for each cancer type, allowing comparisons between the number of observed cases versus the number of expected cases to determine if the occurrence of these cancer types are higher or lower than one would expect given the population size and demographics of the local area in question. The final report reads. Anything in that whole paragraph?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to not all our data is there. So how can they say that there's no cluster when they're not accurately looking at the data?
Well, it's almost like they're cherry picking them.
Absolutely.
I don't know how else to put it. I mean, if we're being real here, it seems like they're cherry picking the data, and they're manipulating it in a way. Like, for instance, with ours, the one thing that sticks out is they left out breast cancer. And when you look at Fight for Zero's data, we have 160 cases of breast cancer in the same year from young women in their 20s and 30s, right? So why would they not include the breast cancer? That's pretty high. So it's little things like little details like that make me question what's going on here.
Right. It's the intentional exclusion of data. So that ends up tweaking the report for an outcome that they desire. An amazing investigative reporter, John Rehill, once said, "You will never find what you're not looking for." And you know what? A reporter said that to me today. Another reporter.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the truth.
I think people are slowly catching on to what's going on. This year has been extremely difficult because we've faced the health aspect of it. I think everybody's gotten insight into the health aspect of just life in general, right? Because of COVID and this pandemic and watching politicians and the state and on a federal level, like how they're handling everything. I think a lot of people are getting insight into our frustration that we've been dealing with for years.
Right.
So I think people really do get it. I think they're seeing it and they understand that something isn't right here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how they can eliminate all those classes and then say, yeah, there's no cluster. So by saying that, we didn't include those classes, those deaths didn't count? How can you say those deaths didn't count? You're supposed to be looking at this as a cancer cluster, as a cancer study, which is what they called it. It used to be a health study. Now it's a cancer study. But, and the fact that I want to go back a little bit on Riverside Products. So that property, they manufactured machine parts, I believe, and their years of operation parallel the operation of the old Bayshore High School. So in approximately 1995, 1996, the Florida DEP forced that company out of business because they could not afford cleanup. The guy that bought it still owns it. He purchased it knowing it was fully disclosed, knowing that it was contaminated. He was a property flipper. and he still hasn't cleaned it up. 24 plus years later, and it still is not cleaned up. The documents right here. I mean, for 30 years ago, they were talking about how this property is a threat to the public health and the environment. And they're still playing games with, well, we got to put a monitoring well in. They should be long past that.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to tell us in one of these emails. Let me see if I can find the letter. And then again, that was one from Mary Yergin, Southwest Director, Florida DEP, and this is to Mr. Thompson. And basically, she was saying in here that evidence has shown that Riverside product site has been successfully delineated. The contamination is contained within the Riverside products property and the adjacent property. Well, if it's contained within, how did it get to the adjacent property? And Mr. Woodhouse will tell them all day long, when these toxins get into the aquifer, they don't stay behind a fence. They run all the way to the bay, wherever they want to go.
Yeah, I think
and that is so misleading. This is what is so, I don't know which is more irritating. This, I think not as much this, because I expected it.
Yeah.
This, to me, this is misleading. She's addressing the father of a cancer victim, and she's telling him, oh, well, it stayed on the property. No, they don't know that, because that's why they're trying to get a monitoring well put in across the street.
It's interesting because I've noticed in the state of Florida, one of their go-tos is that contaminants stay on a property and they don't migrate off of the property. I think there's several cases of that across the state of Florida. I know, one case of that is South Patrick Shores is up against Patrick Air Force Base, and Patrick Air Force Base continues to say, we basically have it contained onto the base. And, let's just forget about all the military families that live on base,
right?
To start off with. But I think, people aren't stupid. Water moves. And if the chemicals are in the water, it's going to move with it.
Right.
It's really that simple of a concept.
And depending on the toxins, like Mr. Woodhouse has explained to us, if they're metals, they're sinkers, if they're petroleums, they're floaters, and depending on what the toxins are, depends on which way they go. And then there's the testing that they do. They're not doing the proper testing for all the contaminants that are out there. And then there's the fact of the wells that were at Bayshore High School. When I first started this, I had no clue what I seriously looked up environmental causes of leukemia with benzene. I'm like, what the heck is benzene?
Yeah.
And lo and behold, my investigation and searching discovered that, guess what? There were diesel storage tanks all over those properties. But our experts, it's like I found enough to convince experts to take a look at it. And those experts, which I said included, an epidemiologist and a toxicologist, and they said, look, absolutely, these numbers are disturbing. There is something here, but the illnesses and cancers that you have would not all be caused by one toxin, which is how we found Riverside. So, I mean, it's just, if it weren't for those experts, this would have never happened. They would have never voluntarily done this.
I mean, to me, it's not a meaningful investigation. What's the point? You wasted 3 years of everybody's lives waiting for this.
Right.
Didn't do any environmental testing. No. It's just a waste of time. When's the last time a cancer cluster has actually been established? And what community really cares if they're designated as a cancer cluster? There are benefits of being designated as a cancer cluster because it's supposed to open up resources. But as we know, the acreage down south, they're having issues trying to get those resources anyway.
Actually, I'm not going to comment on the acreage cases because it's an ongoing case. But so when I started that, I thought it was just the tanks at Bayshore, and then here, we've discovered Riverside. Well, we've stayed on Riverside, the cleanup of that. And if it weren't for Mr. Thompson and I constantly checking the Florida DEP Ocula database, what's going on? Did you see this? Did you see that? And him getting, sending emails up. I couldn't believe it was just a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago at the most, where the Florida DEP actually asked the Florida Department of Health for a copy of the report. Like, I thought these entities were supposed to be working together. Their mission statement about protecting the health, that is so bogus. That is so bogus.
Do you have that mission statement?
Yeah,
that is bogus.
Yeah, it is. I was actually pretty disturbed by it. I don't know if I printed that email. I know I put it out in a post last week, because I was really disturbed by that. Because if they were really concerned with it, Riverside would be cleaned up by now. It would be like in a monitoring only status. They wouldn't still be going for, inspection warrants and trying to install monitoring. It should have been done a long time ago, when they kicked the original owners to the curb, basically, because they couldn't afford it. This new owner should have been held to the same standards that they were going to hold the original owners to. In the meantime, it's still affecting. Who knows? Are we getting the data that we need to have to make that determination? I don't think so. I don't have any faith in what I've seen.
And it's unfortunate too, because even the people that live around there right now, if they wanted to test their water, like say their drinking water, to ensure they're not ingesting it, they'll be paying thousands of dollars to test for, a list of contaminants. Many people can't afford that. The cost of, and it has to be certified testing. Don't forget that, because the state of Florida loves finding, any way to discredit and dismiss you. So if you just do preliminary testing that isn't certified, they'll point out, oh, that's not certified, it doesn't count, even if it has findings.
Speaking of wells, at Bayshore High School, we could never get the county to give us any documentation that showed when Bayshore transitioned off of well water and on to county water. They're saying 85, which, by the way, isn't that convenient?
Yeah.
That's around the same time frame. So are they only doing that in, the data set from 86 forward, because that's when you think we were on county water. But again, these toxins travel. So if there's a public well down the street, they're going to get some of the same toxins in their well also. So that is a false misconception. And I that's kind of infuriating too. But the wells that were at Bayshore High School, when I showed Mr. Thompson that, he asked, he and a colleague were talking about wells, and he said, you know what? Those wells weren't capped, they were killed. Because the amount of bags of cement that were required to
Wait, we lost your sound.
There
you go.
Mr. Woodhouse called in.
Oh, Mr. Woodhouse. We love Mr. Woodhouse.
Talk to him, but I don't know how to do StreamYard and talk to Mr. Woodhouse. But they said that those wells weren't capped, those were killed. Meaning somebody wanted those plugged. And anybody knows that has property, a well adds value to your property. You don't just cap it. Look, cap it. with 4 bags of cement.
Oh my goodness.
Or whatever.
Let me read this next part, okay? We're almost to the end of this, okay? The department offers the following. A cancer cluster is defined as a greater than expected number of cancer cases that occurs within a group of people in a defined geographic area over a specified period of time. When people learn that several friends, family members, or neighbors have found out they have cancer, cancer clusters are often suspected. Cancer clusters are also sometimes suspected when people who work at the same place or have other factors in common get cancer.
Yeah.
So wait.
So this is 3 years. Look, our press release is twice as long as theirs, and we only had 24 hours to come up with it.
Wait. So wasn't there 31 graduating students that got cancer? It was 31 or something?
Yeah, there were 30. There were 31.
Okay.
Class of 256.
So they're normalizing that. They're saying, oh, when people know a couple of their friends and classmates and people they know that had cancer, it's like we're trying to make cancer the new coronavirus or flu. It's crazy.
You know, when I started this, they used a similar cookie cutter answer like that. And at the time, the little spiel went something like this, that cancer is second to cardiac, which is the number one cause of death. And then I'm like, okay, so how many people should I have known that have died of cardiac disease? It should be way more than that, and I don't. So
wait, let me go to the website real quick. Wasn't there a part in the website that said it had something about cancer? Oh, I saw it a while back. The Department of Health had it where it was like now it surpasses heart disease.
Yeah. I wonder why, because they won't admit that there's a problem in Florida and the toxins keep flowing and we won't even get on Mosaic.
No.
We won't even start on Mosaic. Like, and we're not even going there tonight.
No, that's a whole nother episode. We'll have a Mosaic episode, and I'll make a wine bottle that says, we got that. We'll do another episode. But I want to let you know, we've got Felicity on here commenting, Candy Luther, we've got Jeff, Jim Wilson. I can't see the comments on this live stream, so I have to look over here to kind of try to get them up and going here. But it says, you've got Pebbles that says, love you and still praying for BH. Greg says, hit him where it hurts, Cheryl. Let me see those muscles, Cheryl. You are a superhero, Cheryl.
You're a superhero too. It's sad that we have to bring our own data and say why is this happening? Like, why did we wait for 3 years for this?
That's what I keep saying. 3 years is a long time to wait for you to look over data. I think I say that because I saw them do it in 8 months with us. Right. You know what I mean? So I'm like, so it's possible for you to get it done quicker, Well,
I immediately knew when yours was released and within that 8 month time frame, and ours, like 5 months later, they're like, oh, it'll be ready next year. Well, that was 2 years ago. So, and that's when we went to Tallahassee. You got yours when we went to Tallahassee, and where we tried to point this out that they were dated.
That's a good point. Let's bring that up, Cheryl. Let's bring that up. So Fight for Zero met with the Governor's Office of Policy and Budget on May 7th, 2019. And we brought forward the concern that the state of Florida Department of Health does not have a standard protocol for investigating cancer clusters. And when we did this meeting, we pointed out the discrepancies between all of the assessments. So one of the great things about joining forces is that we can also share our information and how things are being done. And I don't think they ever anticipated different cancer clusters coming together
and being advocates and collaborating. And I remember I saw a news article, somebody shared on my Facebook, about Satellite Beach and the doctor over there that brought yours to light. And I'm like, I have to go to their town hall meeting. And wasn't it like on a Sunday?
Yeah.
It was like on a Sunday.
Yep.
And I brought one of the health study reports, and they said, if they don't do this report, they're not doing the same thing. And like, I don't know. I'm pretty much sure we bonded that day.
Yes. And I'm glad you came. And I I think that it's so important that we all connect, everybody that's an advocate and anybody that's been a victim. I think what makes our organization so unique is that it's not just us advocates fighting. You have this amazing grassroots team of people that are just community members who care about water quality and health. And then you've got another group who are families of people who have had cancer or autoimmune diseases. And then you have the other group of survivors. And all of us joining forces together, we have those different perspectives, and we have just an amazing dynamic going on. And then on top of it, we have all of our experts that have come on board and are working with the community.
And
so
experts that are willing to cross lines and help each other across the lines, and help you guys and yours help us. And that's been the blessing in this. What's my takeaway of this? It's surely not this report from the Florida DOH. My takeaway is your friendship, our collaboration and advocacy for what we're doing, because we're just getting started. Started. And later on this evening, we're going to be shortly after this, we're going to release our press release to the media, with basically what we've discussed tonight. What our concerns are with this, and how their report is lacking.
I think communities who bring forward contamination and health concerns, they need a meaningful investigation. No one's going to have closure if there's no transparency.
Exactly.
It's
well, you mentioned cancer clusters earlier. Like, why aren't there more cancer clusters? I mean, it's pretty obvious. If they eliminate so much of the data, that you're basically eliminating, the cancer cluster itself. But I go back to the one cancer cluster that we know of in Manatee County was the Talavast with American beryllium. And that, speaking about the differences of how the DOH handles these investigations, in the Talavast investigation, they did the environmental part first, then they did the health study. They did the exact complete opposite with us. Complete opposite. And their report, I have a copy of it. Very, very, very in depth. Nothing like we were given.
They're so different. And I think what we should do is we should put all of those reports on our website so that other people can actually download them and compare them. I think that'll be a big eye opener. And maybe we could do another live in the near future that compares the reports and shows, some of them are, I think ours was like way longer than yours. I think it might have been 8 pages. It was a really long report, but the differences are just like.
Now, this summary, I did not get the opportunity to print out because they sent it to me, like I said, this afternoon, and I'm leaving work, and I didn't have time to print it. That shows, what their, I don't know, how they arrived at their numbers, like how many had this cancer and what age group, and whatever the data was. So there are, but it's not that many pages. It's nothing like what the Talavast one was. And you know what? There's no difference. And again, you're talking about people being exposed to toxins and dying at the end of the day. That's what this is all about, being exposed to toxins and dying. Instead, if they would take the energy they spent on this, the 3 years, and churn that into getting things cleaned up and awareness, for people to pay attention to water and get their water tested and water filters and, education like that, it would be time much better spent.
I agree. I think we have a lot of issues in the state of Florida, between our water quality, environment, and health, and the fact that so many people are being affected by it. I mean, I can't tell you how many families I've met that say my brother, sister, mother all got cancer within 5 years, or, I mean, anybody that's watching this live probably knows somebody that had cancer. And I think it's scary for me that it's being normalized. That's scary for me. Like it's becoming like a flu now. You know, we're in 2020 and the new decade is like them saying, well, you know, like how people say, you know, well, everything causes cancer. So who cares? And, you know that comment that you get all the time. Right. It's very frustrating when they say that. And I'm like, but we do care because, you know, this is our future generations and people suffer when they go through cancer. This isn't the flu. This is something that takes people's lives. And if it doesn't take their life, then it changes them for the rest of their life. They have autoimmune issues. They have allergy issues. Their body is completely beaten and torn apart from being administered the poison, because the poison doesn't just attack the bad stuff. It attacks the good stuff, like your teeth, you know, so, and your other organs. That's why you see so many cancer patients that deal with issues in the future.
One of the things that I noticed when I was doing, you know, at our crowdsourced data, I noticed a connection. Now, look, I'm not claiming to be an epidemiologist or an oncologist. I'm just sharing what I discovered. And I noticed that a trend in that there would be, like my sister died of leukemia. I'm a surviving sibling. I have 2 autoimmune diseases. I ran across that. I cannot tell you how many times. Well, the Florida Department of Health doesn't even track data on autoimmune diseases.
No, they don't.
And you know what? Autoimmune diseases can, not all do, but can turn into lymphoma, can lead to lymphoma. So why they don't track it, I think it's pretty apparent, but, you know, I just...
Well, I think I've asked a doctor that before, why they don't track autoimmune diseases, and they said because it's just so common. You know, so much of it out there, and we track it. Fight for Zero tracks it. You know, we believe every single person counts. And if you feel like you want to be a part of our data and our graphs that we're trying to work on now and our new mapping to give people a visual what's going on, we think every single person counts. You are more than a number to us. I feel like the Department of Health and the government just views people as a number, and you are more than that. You are human beings, and we care about what you are going through. And even if it wasn't from toxins, we still care.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's what today I was asked numerous times from various reporters, you know, to give my comment. And I said, you know, here, this is going to be my comment. Is we have a press release coming later today. But we need to share this information that we are going to be releasing with the families and the victims first, because that's the consideration everybody should have for anybody that's been through it.
Jim Wilson says, we just want answers to these cancer clusters.
Absolutely.
And it's sad because I think, you know, a lot of people view the victims and they're like, oh, they're going to start suing, and they look at it in a negative light. And it's really, for us, it is about saving lives and cleanup.
It's about saving lives. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the other things that bonds us so much, is that we have that same desire, you know.
Yeah, we don't want to see another loved one, you know, and then we know how it feels. Like, you know how it feels to lose somebody that you love too soon. And to have to go through that grief, it's not easy. You are a warrior, Cheryl, and you just...
Bell Bailey, because you're a cancer survivor and you are out here kicking Heine and taking names and being an advocate for others that can't kick Heine right now.
Well, you have a news interview, right, that you're doing, and you're supposed to, you might want to tell everybody when that's supposed to air.
So
is that airing tonight, or?
ABC 7 wants to interview me, ABC 7 out of Sarasota, at 7 p.m. this evening. So I guess it's on their live show. And I will be on there. I don't think it's going to be a real long time. I mean, it's only going to be a short, brief 10 minutes, asking me my thoughts, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna definitely share that, or let us know. I don't know if we get that channel over here, but I'd really like to get it recorded,
Yeah.
or the video recording, so we can post that for everybody too, because we're still working on our website. We've got a lot of updating we're doing, and I've been working on trying to get the data organized to where we can get graphing and new mapping up, and just really just get a lot more. I mean, I feel like our website already has a lot of information and educational materials, but we really want to take it to the next level. And so we've been working on that for the past few months.
You amaze me. The things that girl, you multitasking, you give that a whole new definition.
I think that's a part of ADD. I'll be honest. I can't do one thing at a time. I have to be doing at least 5 projects at once. So I think that helps me. It's insane. Some things are a blessing in disguise, and that's definitely a blessing in disguise for me.
Well,
but
you're a blessing to me.
So, well, Cheryl, I love you so much, and I hope everybody watching here, I want to let you know that there are people that care. Us on the East Coast, we care about what's going on the West Coast. We care about Bayshore High School.
And we care about you over at Satellite High School.
And together we're stronger. So anybody that's watching this, don't lose hope. You've got some amazing advocates across the state of Florida that are just taking on all kinds of issues. And I can say that because we did the statewide day of action, and we had people from across the state of Florida join in on that. And so I think we have to continue bonding together, because that's what's going to make us stronger in this state, and it's going to get us somewhere. So
that's what we're going to have to do to get change.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we can't be divided on these issues. We have to find a way to make it, because
the one thing that I love about Fight for Zero is we are nonpartisan. We are out there for clean water and the health of the people and the health of the environment. That's what our goal is.
Yep. So. And I love it too, because there's so many people, so many different dynamics on our team, but everybody is affiliated with a different, political party. And so when you say nonpartisan, we truly are nonpartisan, and we may not all see eye to eye on those kinds of things, but at the end of the day, what's the most important is our mission and our goals. And a lot of people lose focus on that. And I think that we've done a really good job at keeping focus and not letting the distractions get to us.
Absolutely.
So,
especially this year, it has been very difficult to do that through everything. And I'm really proud of the strides that we have made and that we will continue to make. And that's a promise.
Yep. Well, on that note, I'm going to end the broadcast, and we will talk soon.
Okay, Stell, thank you for your help.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.